I find myself frozen in place, pruning shears hovering over my father's prized black-eyed Susans, as I stare at the neon orange violation notice stapled through the century-old oak's bark, the same tree where Dad carved our initials when I was 7. My hands shake as I rip the offensive paper free, leaving an ugly wound in the ancient wood. Immediate action required. Trail safety violations. 30 years of welcoming neighbors to our family's nature trail, and this is how they repay us. I inherited this 20-acre wildlife sanctuary from my father last spring, after cancer took him far too soon. As an environmental conservation officer, I promised him I'd protect this land just as he and Grandpa had, keeping it wild yet welcoming, a rare refuge of untamed nature nestled against the encroaching Seattle suburbs. For 3 generations, the Reynolds family trail has been our gift to the community. Until now, the morning fog still clings to the Douglas firs as I follow the winding dirt path, discovering more violation notices to facing trees along the way. Each one feels like a personal attack on Dad's memory. He spent decades nurturing this ecosystem, teaching visitors about local wildlife and native plants. Now some HOA wants to modernize it. Mr. Reynolds? A sharp voice cuts through the morning quiet. I turn to find a woman in a crisp business suit, entirely impractical for hiking, marching down the trail like she owns it. Her heels sink into the soft earth with each determined step. I'm Rebecca Sterling, president of the estates at Valley Ridge Homeowners Association. She extends a manicured hand which I deliberately ignore, still clutching the crumpled violation notice. I see you've found our notices. We need to discuss bringing this rustic area up to our community standards. I force myself to remain professional, though my jaw clenches. This trail isn't part of your community, Miss Sterling. It's private property that's been in my family for 3 generations. She waves off my objection with perfectly lacquered nails. Our residents use this trail, which makes it a community amenity subject to HOA oversight. We have serious concerns about safety and liability. She gestures at the natural stone steps my father spent a summer crafting. These pose an unacceptable risk. We'll need them replaced with regulation concrete stairs. Absolutely not. I stand my ground, drawing on my experience dealing with entitled developers in my conservation work. This land isn't under HOA jurisdiction. Period. Rebecca's plastic smile doesn't waver. We'll see about that. Valley Ridge properties start at $2 million. We can't have this. She wrinkles her nose at a patch of native salmonberries, uncontrolled wilderness affecting our property values. This uncontrolled wilderness is a certified wildlife habitat. I gesture to the discreet marker Dad installed. Those berries feed native birds and small mammals. The fallen logs you probably want removed? They're essential amphibian habitat. How quaint. Her condescending tone makes my blood boil. But times change, Mr. Reynolds. The estate's residents expect certain standards. We'll need lighting installed every 50 feet, security cameras, emergency call boxes, and the entire trail paved for accessibility. Our contractors start next week. I step closer, using my height advantage. Touch one tree on my property, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing. This discussion is over. She pulls out her phone, snapping photos. We'll see who the city sides with, a prestigious development bringing in millions in tax revenue, or one stubborn man clinging to outdated ideas about conservation. I watch her pick her way back down the trail, already texting furiously. When she's gone, I sink onto the memorial bench where Dad used to birdwatch. The morning sun breaks through the canopy, illuminating the brass plaque, James Reynolds Memorial Trail, where all are welcome to walk softly in nature. My phone buzzes. An email from Rebecca Sterling, copying the entire HOA board. My chest tightens as I read their list of demands, each one a dagger aimed at everything Dad stood for. They're giving me 30 days to comply or face legal action. I trace Dad's carved initials in the old oak, remembering his final words. Promise me you'll protect this place, son. Some things are worth fighting for. Looking at the violation notices scattered along his beloved trail, I make a new promise. This is one fight Rebecca Sterling is going to regret starting. I knew the battle for Dad's legacy was just beginning, but I didn't realize how far an entitled HOA president would go to get her way, or how sweet victory would taste when she finally learned that some things aren't for sale. The next morning, I'm reviewing trail camera footage at my kitchen table when movement catches my eye. Through the window, I spot Rebecca Sterling leading what looks like an official inspection team along my trail. My coffee goes cold as I watch 3 HOA board members in business casual attire measuring trees and taking photos, acting like they own the place. I grab my conservation officer badge, not strictly necessary on my own property, but it tends to add weight to my words, and head out to confront them. They've got some kind of checklist marking off violations with an efficiency that tells me they planned this for a while. This is private property. I call out, approaching the group. You're trespassing. Rebecca barely glances up from her tablet. We're conducting a mandatory safety assessment. Article 7.3 of our bylaws requires regular inspection of all community recreational areas. Your bylaws don't apply here, I counter, pulling out my phone to record. This isn't your property. One of her companions, a nervous-looking man in khakis, shifts uncomfortably. Rebecca, maybe we should dash. Continue our inspection, David. She cuts him off. Mr. Reynolds needs to understand that times have changed. This isn't some backwoods trail anymore. We have families with children using this path. Families who've been safely enjoying this trail for 30 years. I remind her, blood pressure rising as she marks another violation on her tablet. The only thing that's changed is your HOA trying to overstep its authority. She points to a natural clearing where Dad used to host nature talks. This area needs proper seating, lighting, and surveillance. We've already contracted with Valley Security Systems for installation next week. Like hell you have. I step directly into her path. Any unauthorized construction on my property will be treated as criminal trespassing. I'll have you arrested. Rebecca's smile turns predatory. I've already spoken with City Councilman Phillips. He's very concerned about the liability issues of an unregulated trail bordering our development. Did you know your father never obtained proper permits for these? She gestures dismissively at Dad's hand-built stone steps, rustic modifications. My stomach drops. Dad had always worked with the city's blessing, but much of it had been informal. Handshake agreements with officials who'd known our family for decades. I can see in Rebecca's eyes that she's found what she thinks is my weak spot. That afternoon, I discover just how far she's willing to go. A certified letter arrives from the HOA's lawyer, filled with thinly veiled threats about code violations and liability concerns. They're demanding immediate HOA oversight of the trail, citing some obscure legal precedent about prescriptive easements. I forward everything to Maria Chun, my friend from law school who specializes in property rights. Her response is quick and reassuring. They're trying to intimidate you with legal nonsense. Don't worry, I'll handle this. But Rebecca's next move catches me off guard. That evening, my phone explodes with messages from trail regulars. The HOA has posted notices at every entrance declaring the trail unsafe for public use and warning of potential citations for trespassing. I drive out to remove them and find myself face-to-face with David, the uncomfortable board member from earlier. He's pulling down one of the signs himself. I'm sorry, he says quickly. I never agreed to this. Rebecca pushed it through without a proper board vote. He glances around nervously. She's convinced some investors that renovating the trail will raise property values. There's talk of using it as a selling point for the next phase of development. My blood runs cold. This isn't just about control. It's about money. They want to turn Dad's natural sanctuary into another manicured amenity to sell overpriced houses. The final straw comes 3 days later. I wake to the sound of heavy equipment. A construction crew is unloading at the trail entrance, with Rebecca supervising triumphantly. Stop work immediately, I order, planting myself in front of a bulldozer. You have no permits and no authority to be here. We have every authority. Rebecca smirks, waving a document. The city has granted us emergency authorization to address urgent safety concerns. Step aside, Mr. Reynolds, or I'll have you removed. I call Maria, hands shaking with rage. As I watch the crew marking trees for removal, I realize this isn't just about protecting Dad's legacy anymore. It's about standing up to the entitled few who think money gives them the right to take whatever they want. What Rebecca doesn't know is that I've spent my career protecting wilderness from people exactly like her. She's about to learn that messing with this conservation officer and my father's legacy was the biggest mistake of her prestigious HOA career. Maria Chin arrives like an avenging angel in a tailored suit, emergency injunction in hand. The construction crew is still idling their engines when she marches straight up to Rebecca, radiating the kind of quiet confidence that only comes from knowing you're about to demolish someone's legal delusions. Ms. Sterling, here's your copy of the emergency injunction halting all construction activity on this property. Maria's voice carries just enough for the growing crowd of onlooking residents to hear. I'd suggest reading it carefully. Violating a court order carries serious penalties. Rebecca's face flushes as she snatches the document. This is ridiculous. We have city approval - obtained through misrepresentation. Maria cuts in smoothly. You claimed authority over private property. You have no legal right to modify. The city has already rescinded their authorization. She turns to the construction foreman. If you continue work now, you'll be in violation of a federal court order. The foreman takes one look at the paperwork and signals his crew. Pack it up, boys. This job's dead. He shoots Rebecca a disgusted look. Next time, make sure you actually own the property before hiring contractors. As the construction vehicles rumble away, I notice an elderly gentleman watching from the trail entrance. He approaches slowly, leaning on a carved walking stick I recognize. He's one of our regular morning hikers. Quite a show, he says, introducing himself as Judge Thomas Harrison, retired. I've been watching the situation unfold with professional interest. Mind if I share some insights? Over coffee at my kitchen table, Judge Harrison reveals he's been documenting Rebecca's overreach for months. She tried similar tactics in her last HOA, he explains. I made some calls. She was forced to resign after attempting to seize control of a private pond adjacent to their property. Maria's eyes light up. A pattern of behavior? That strengthens our case considerably. We spend the next hour outlining our legal strategy. Maria's already filed a comprehensive lawsuit addressing the harassment, trespassing, and attempted property conversion. Judge Harrison offers to testify about Rebecca's history of overreach. But Rebecca isn't going down without a fight. That evening, she calls an emergency HOA meeting, presumably to rally support. Thanks to David's warning, we're ready. The clubhouse is packed when Maria and I arrive. Rebecca's at the podium, painting a dramatic picture of property values plummeting because of my unsafe, unregulated wilderness. She's just warming up to demands for legal action when Judge Harrison clears his throat. Point of order, he announces, rising slowly. Before we continue, the membership should be aware of several pertinent facts. He proceeds to methodically outline the legal reality of our property rights, the potential liability the HOA faces from Rebecca's actions, and the personal exposure board members could face for supporting illegal construction. As a homeowner who would be required to help pay for any legal judgments against the HOA, he concludes, I move for Rebecca Sterling's immediate removal as president for actions exceeding her authority and exposing this community to significant liability. The room erupts. Residents who enjoyed our trail for months stand up to speak. Others demand to know why HOA funds were spent on unauthorized legal action. David reveals the unauthorized board decisions and secret meetings. Rebecca tries to maintain control, but her support crumbles as the truth emerges. The final blow comes from an unexpected source. The city councilman she claimed supported her. Mr. Councilman Phillips sends his regards. Maria announces, reading from her phone. He was quite surprised to learn how his informal discussion about trail safety was misrepresented. He's offered to provide a sworn statement clarifying that he never authorized HOA intervention on private property. The vote for Rebecca's removal is nearly unanimous. As security escorts her from the clubhouse, she turns to make one final threat. "This isn't over. I'll dash." "Actually, it is," Maria interrupts. "Any further attempts to interfere with the Reynolds property will trigger additional legal action. I suggest focusing on selling your house instead." The new interim board president, Janet Cooper, approaches us immediately. "We need to make this right," she says earnestly. "Whatever it takes." Later that evening, Judge Harrison joins me for a walk along the trail. The setting sun filters through the trees Dad loved so much, casting long shadows across the path he spent decades maintaining. "You know," the judge muses, "sometimes it takes someone trying to destroy something precious to remind people why it was worth protecting in the first place." Looking at the evening light playing across Dad's memorial plaque, I can't help but agree. The trail feels different now. Not just preserved, but actively protected by the very community that had seemed ready to let it be destroyed. Tomorrow we'll start discussing terms with the HOA's lawyers. But tonight, I simply walk my father's trail, knowing his legacy is secure. Sometimes the best victories aren't just about winning. They're about bringing people together to protect what matters most. The morning mist parts as I lead a group of volunteers, including several HOA residents, along the trail for our first community cleanup day. It's been 2 months since Rebecca's dramatic departure, and the change in atmosphere is remarkable. Janet Cooper, the new HOA president, walks beside me, genuinely interested in learning about the native plants we're working to protect. "I had no idea salmonberries were so important for local wildlife," she says, watching a pair of spotted towhees hop through the underbrush. "My kids used to think they were just weeds." That was Dad's favorite part of maintaining this trail, I tell her, pausing to show a young family how to properly remove invasive blackberry vines. He believed people would protect what they understood. Every plant, every fallen log has its place in the ecosystem. We've worked with the new board to create something unique, a true partnership between private conservation and community involvement. The formal agreement Janet helped draft is elegant in its simplicity. The trail remains private property under Reynolds family control, but the HOA contributes to its preservation through voluntary donations and organized volunteer days. Judge Harrison, who's become both a friend and mentor, approaches with his morning coffee. "Quite a difference from 2 months ago," he observes, watching HOA residents working alongside longtime trail users. "Rebecca's house just sold, by the way, below asking price." I can't help but smile. "Any word on where she ended up?" "Gated community in Arizona," he chuckles. No walking trails in sight. The cleanup crew moves along the path, removing litter and marking spots where Dad's old educational signs need replacing. The HOA's voluntary trail fund, carefully structured to convey no ownership rights, will help cover the cost of new signs designed to teach visitors about the ecosystem they're walking through. David, the board member who helped expose Rebecca's schemes, leads a group cataloging native plant species. He's become one of our most dedicated volunteers, even taking courses in local ecology. "My kids never cared about nature before," he tells me, helping his daughter identify a trillium. Now they're teaching their friends about salmon habitat. We break for lunch at Dad's memorial clearing. Janet takes the opportunity to make an announcement. "The board unanimously approved the installation of proper boundary markers," she says. "Clear signs stating this is private conservation land, maintained in partnership with the community. We want everyone to understand this trail's history and importance." Maria, who stopped by to see our progress, adds her own good news. The settlement paperwork is final. The HOA's insurance covered most of it, but Rebecca had to personally reimburse them for the unauthorized legal fees and construction deposits. "What are you going to do with the settlement money?" someone asks. I gestured to the surrounding forest. Everything goes back into the trail. Dad's dream was to expand the educational programs, maybe partner with local schools for nature workshops. I paused at a familiar oak tree, tracing the old carved initials. He always said this land was meant to be shared, not controlled. As the afternoon winds down, I find myself alone at Dad's memorial bench. The setting sun filters through the canopy, just like it did the day I found those first violation notices. But now, instead of anger, I feel a deep sense of peace. Janet joins me, holding a framed document. "We had this made for you," she says quietly. It's a beautifully worded acknowledgement of the Reynolds family's contribution to the community, pledging to respect and help preserve this natural space for future generations. Every current board member has signed it. "Your father would be proud," Judge Harrison says, appearing with his ever-present walking stick. "Not just of protecting the land, but of how you brought the community together in the process." Looking out over the trail as the last volunteers head home, I see Dad's vision more clearly than ever. The path winds through the trees just as it has for 3 generations, but now it's more than just a trail. It's a bridge between wilderness and community, between conservation and cooperation. Tomorrow, I'll start working with local teachers to develop nature education programs. Next month, we'll host workshops on native plant identification and wildlife habitat. The trail's story continues to grow, enriched by every person who walks it with respect and understanding. As twilight settles over the forest, I lock the trail gates, a task Dad did every evening for decades. An owl calls from somewhere in the darkness, reminding me that this land has its own rhythm, its own rules. Sometimes it takes nearly losing something to remind people of its true value. In defeating those who would control this sanctuary, we've created something even better, a community united in protecting it. Dad always said some things are worth fighting for. Looking at what we've built from that fight, I know he was right.